Welcome to the School of Moxie Podcast, brought to you by Sensible Woo. This is the podcast where we break the mold around business podcast conversations. We make it fun around here by using television, movies, and entertainment as the jumping off point for conversations about how we navigate the world as individuals. I'm your host, Mary Williams, and I've been an online creator since 2010. I've seen a lot of trends come and go over the years, but one thing that has persisted is a struggle among entrepreneurs to connect more authentically with their audiences. As a business systems process and operations coach, I've seen how much my clients and subscribers have benefited from learning how to incorporate their fun sides. So we're going to demonstrate this for you here on this podcast through analogous thinking. Not only that, but we're using media and entertainment as the lens through which we reflect on our own desires and strengths. Fiction is the vehicle that gives us words to articulate our value systems and tells people who we are. I find that a lot of my audience, and probably yours as well, struggle to find words for their problems until they start thinking about how to use analogies. Analogies help us build bridges between something we can describe into a new area that we are in the process of developing. As humans, we are a languaged species, which means we find context and meaning in our lives through the ability to put our feelings into words. This podcast is going to help you normalize this process and see how it's done in real time as my guests talk through their own experiences in relation to the episodes they've been assigned for this show. Our first season of this podcast is centered on the first season of the HBO original series, The Last of Us, based on the video game of the same name. Consider this your official spoiler alert. On this podcast, my guests are going to jump right into the conversation, and we are going to spill all the tea on the story and the plot. So if you enjoy being surprised, I encourage you to watch the episode first before listening to our discussion. Before we get into this week's episode, have I told you about the weekly readings that I create for entrepreneurs just like you each and every week? I am an Akashic Records and Tarot reader, and I've been giving clients intuitive guidance coaching for just about 20 years now. That's a long time. I know that most readers out there don't focus on your business needs, so that's where I come in. Readings with me are only about your business development, and it helps you feel more aligned with your intuitive messages so that you can incorporate those gut feelings and inner knowings into your business data for better results. Click the link in the show notes and subscribe to my weekly email updates where you can get a free reading sent to your inbox every single week. If you want more, you can subscribe to the weekly extended readings, which are just $9 per month and help you get focused on your business energy every week. No more Sunday scaries. You've got this better in hand than you know, and I'll help you see it. Now let's get watching and talking. Hey y'all, Mary here for one final episode of season 1. That's right, we've reached the season finale. And would you like to hear something kind of funny about this episode? It's number 19, and I honestly thought I would end up with an even number 20 this season. In fact, I almost pushed myself to make this become an even 20, but then I remembered the magic of numerology, which involves reducing numbers down to single digits. So 1 plus 9 equals 10, which is still a double-digit number. So you reduce it further, where 1 plus 0 equals 1. So we're back to the beginning again with episode number 19, and it feels really special to call the season wrapped on today's episode with that number. It's also really fitting for the energy of season 1, which was focused exclusively on The Last of Us. If you pay close attention, you'll notice that The Last of Us also ends in an odd number, the number 9. My guests this season had a lot of homework, and one of the things they were tasked with doing was listening to the official podcast for this show, which is produced by HBO. The showrunners give you all their behind-the-scenes secrets and creative decision-making processes on the podcast, which replaces the DVD extras from the days of old. I highly recommend that podcast if you want to dive deeper into the creative process, because they share so much valuable information and insight that I think you can't help but become inspired to do the same in your marketing materials. On the official podcast, they talked about how they originally wrote season 1 of The Last of Us to be a 10-episode series. But when the pilot episode was screened in the production process, the executives at the studio thought it was too disjointed between episodes 1 and 2. There simply weren't enough compelling reasons to connect with the characters and understand why they embark on this journey together. So they edited their work and created a nearly feature-length pilot episode combining episodes 1 1 and 2, which created a domino effect in the rest of the episodes. And now we have a 9-episode series rather than the original vision of 10 episodes. I work with entrepreneurs in their energetic spaces when I'm not nerding out on television shows and creating podcasts and formats that people don't do right now in business. So maybe it's the super woo side of sensible woo that I feel the energy of this season on the School of Moxie podcast expertly fell into lockstep with its source material from The Last of Us. And for that, I give a hat tip to the media gods and goddesses for hearing our discussions this year and putting the period on the end of the sentence. Part of me really didn't want to wrap the season. I'm just not emotionally done with The Last of Us. And now that the actor and writer strikes are over, it means they'll finally start filming season 2. So long as season 2 is as riveting as season 1, you can bet your automated funnels that I'm going to bring it back in the future on this podcast. I still feel that The Last of Us may not have been the show everyone wanted for season 1, but it was the show that we all needed. Last week, when I was chatting with Chris about our production room adventures this year, I said that The Last of Us represents a bigger action for our business community. It represents doing hard things and getting through them. You might think that watching a television series seems kind of stupid compared with the bigger problems you need to solve in your business right now. And with the way the economy and the market has been up and down this year, you are well within your right to feel those feelings. And also, we have to learn how to finish hard things, to get through those times without glossing over them. This show forces you to do that. And my guests this season were such super troopers in humoring my proof of concept season. To them, I give the biggest hat tip and heartiest round of virtual hugs. Saying yes to being a guest on a podcast is a big deal no matter what. And then me being me, I piled on a shit ton of extra. You can blame it on my Leo sun, Leo moon, Leo and Jupiter, Leo and Mercury. Lots of Leo energy over here. Go big or go home is in my DNA. What can I say? As this season has dripped out episode by episode, my business activities have continued to evolve and grow. There have been some truly uncomfortable moments this year and some truly exciting new beginnings. One thing that has been growing steadily in my world for quite some time and then matured into a more concrete thing is the work I do with entrepreneurs, helping them incorporate their human design into their business activities. As I've been helping them interpret their charts and weave those patterns into their real world actions and decisions, I've become acutely aware of my own human design. You see, I'm a manifester, and for all my human design nerds out there, I'm a 6-3 emotional manifester, so now you know. Being a manifester is hard in this generator world. I'm one of the rarer types in human design at about only 9% of the world's population sharing my type along with me. Manifestors are the only human design type that has energy built for initiating new things that this world has never seen before. And I feel that this podcast with the television analogies as a vehicle for talking about businesses is a perfect example of this type of initiation. I really only make great stuff when I feel the intuitive, creative urge to make things happen in reality. Believe me when I say I have lots of generators around me telling me all the time that they think I should do this, that, and the other. And this year, through producing this podcast, I finally matured into my energetic flow as a manifester, which means I am acutely aware of when I'm feeling a true creative urge and when I am not. This podcast is a major expression, and I don't know where it all comes from. I just know that it comes through me, and it's my job to make it happen in the fullest extent possible from the vision that I have clearly been delivered through divine channeling. And yes, the part about recording live in studios around the world was part of that vision, and I will continue to execute it. But another part of being a manifester is honoring my rest cycle as well. After these massive creative outputs, I find my energy dipping dramatically and I'm simply tired. The urge to create is not there, at all. I was trying to push out just a little extra, and then Chris and I had a conversation, and he may not have realized it at the time, but he channeled a divine piece of guidance for me and said, "Mary, I think your season is done. You're allowed to end it." So here we are at episode 19 instead of 20, and I couldn't be happier about it. I do know what is on deck, and if you've listened to our previous episodes, you've heard this discussed a few times now. Season 2 for the School of Moxie podcast is going to be focused on the the Apple TV Plus series Ted Lasso. We're going to use all 3 seasons as our material for the next season on this podcast. Yes, to talk about your business journey. I'm in the process of scripting and casting parts for the season, and unlike season 1 of this podcast, where each guest was assigned a single episode from The Last of Us, we are going to change that up a bit in season 2 with Ted Lasso. First off, there are way too many episodes to talk about Ted Lasso in an episodic fashion. You would be bored out of your mind, and I would be driven nuts trying to produce that many episodes. So I am inviting in guests for next season based on characters. Each person will be assigned a character to follow through all seasons of Ted Lasso, and then we'll have discussions based on what each character represents, their story arcs, and how that reflects back to us our journeys as complex humans wearing the title of CEO. While we're on a season break, I think this is the perfect time to catch up on The Last of Us and the discussions around each episode. If you want to be like one of our guests, you can also pick up the book Bittersweet by Susan Cain and enjoy that reading experience. I guarantee you are going to find something within yourself that you didn't realize needed an audience with your conscious thoughts. Between the show and the book, you're in incredibly good hands. If you want to earn some proverbial gold stars, then I also recommend that you listen to the official podcast for The Last of Us, episode by episode, as you watch the show. Then, as you listen to the guests from the School of Moxie podcast, you can ask yourself, what is this helping you uncover about yourself? You can use the last few episodes on this podcast, particularly episodes 16, 17, and 18, to help you synthesize all of these dots and connect them within yourself. The goal here is to take your content consumption out of autopilot and into a deeper, more intuitive space of reflection. This is a genuine skill, and with all skills, it requires practice. I get asked so frequently how to build intuitive skills because I offer this professionally to my business clients. It's honestly these very normal human activities that, when done with great intention and thoughtfulness, produce a muscle in your intuitive space that you simply cannot get through some bypassing type of activity. Your intuitive muscles require you to spend focused, conscious time with yourself, and this podcast format is truly built to help you lift those intuitive weights. If you do this, by the time we get to releasing Ted Lasso discussions for season 2, you're going to go deeper faster in those podcast episodes than you do now with The Last of Us. I firmly believe that both The Last of Us as well as Ted Lasso are inherently feminist stories at their core. It's funny because they both feature a lot of male leads and male characters, but they hold space for women's experiences and viewpoints and repeatedly show us where female expression and presence is regularly shut out of decision-making rooms and discussions on the world stage. I have felt that both toxic masculinity and toxic femininity are fully on deck for massive scale takedowns. This isn't about being angry at external forces, but rather time for us to examine where these toxic traits reside within ourselves so that we don't continue to perpetuate those patterns in our entrepreneurial world. I'll be posting all kinds of teaser information through my weekly email newsletter, on my YouTube channel, and through social media on Instagram in particular. There might be some after the show bonus episodes with season 1 guests while we're on hiatus around here. And so long as you're subscribed to this podcast, you'll be the first to hear the trailer for season 2 when we drop the Ted Lasso preview in spring of 2024. Thank you so much for listening to this season and helping this podcast root firmly into the audio landscape. I am so grateful for your listens and your shares and your support. If you want to stay in touch or support the podcast, please check out the show notes on the episode for all of those links. I am wishing you an amazing transition into the energies of the coming year, and I'll see you in season 2 with Ted Lasso. As Ted Lasso says, I think things come into our lives to help us get from one place to a better one. So thank you to The Last of Us as we journey from one season to the next. This has been the official School of Moxie podcast with your host, Mary Williams. The show is written and produced by Mary Williams, and the episode was recorded in Vancouver, Washington at the Sensible Woo home office. Chris Martin from Chris Martin Studios is our editor and the sound engineer for this episode. Additional production and marketing support is provided by the AK Collective, founded by Amber Kinney. I'm Mary Williams, your host and the founder of Sensible Woo. You can watch the HBO original series The Last of Us on Max.com. As a librarian, I will always encourage you to check out the companion book Bittersweet by Susan Cain at your local library. You can find this show wherever you listen to podcasts, and all of the links to resources, guest information, and anything else we might reference in an episode are in the show notes. We appreciate your support by subscribing and submitting a 5-star review. It helps other listeners find and share this content alongside you, our wonderful listeners. Like and follow Sensible Woo on YouTube, Instagram, and don't forget to subscribe to email updates at sensiblewoo.com, which includes a weekly tarot reading delivered right to your inbox. Until next week, be sensible, be woo, and most of all, be you.